Are we live? Let's see. Are we live? I think we are. If you can hear me, please say hello. I feel like the internet's a little slow. We got 105-degree weather or something crazy like that in Boston. So please, if you're here, just say hi. Let me know you can hear me. I've got a really, really powerful training for you all today and want to make sure everybody can hear me before I go forward. So let me just make sure. Okay, all right. Hey, okay, everybody. So awesome. Thanks, ladies, for letting me know. So, hey, everybody, I'm Kate Peters, your breakthrough success expert, and I am so happy and thrilled to be here with all of you today to do this training. We're talking about money, and I was also thinking to totally off the subject, but as I was getting ready, I'm like, yay, I get to put lipstick on. I don't know if anyone else has felt like this, but with the pandemic, I like lipstick, and with the pandemic, you can't wear, you've got your face mask on, you're not going to put lipstick on. So a little bonus. Anyways, we're going to talk about money. I want to really teach you some really, really important strategies about changing your relationship with money to help you move forward through the pandemic. And then, of course, all these things I'm teaching you are going to help you pass the pandemic as well, too, which is super important. I'm just going to turn off my phone for a second just so it doesn't ring it out. Let's see. There we go. All righty. There we go. Okay. So again, we're talking about money today. I'm going to teach you some strategies, some mindset techniques, which I'm really excited about. And one of the, a couple of reasons that I feel really excited to talk to you about this. Well, first of all, I've been teaching this to my clients, the subject of their relationship with money and changing their money story for probably the last 10 years since I started my business. So it's something I'm very, very familiar with. I'm also a member of the Entrepreneurial 5% Club. And what that means is that only about 5% of all entrepreneurs make over a certain level of income, have a certain profitability, and have been in business for so long. And it's something my coach kind of ignited me or inaugurated me into it. And so I'm quite honored I did it, especially where when I started my business, it was at the tail end of what I used to call the worst economy since the Great Depression. I started it, after 2008, 2009, as we were working through all the muck of that. And so I'm really quite proud that I've been able to do that during such a terrible time. I'm what they call an accidental entrepreneur, where typically, the way you're supposed to start a business is, you've got your regular career or business job going, and you start doing your thing on the side, and you start getting more clients or customers, more opportunities. And then as that's growing, you're putting aside money, you're growing your business. And then when you realize, hey, I've got enough to move forward, then you say goodbye to your day job. And I didn't do it. I kind of jumped both feet in. So to tell you a little bit about my money story before I started my own business was actually kind of interesting because I was doing business development for about, I'm trying to think, like about 16 years. And I started off really not knowing that much about it. And in a very short time, I became very successful. I was closing multi-million-dollar deals. My paychecks reflected it, and I was making a pile of money. And it was really, I'm just going to be really honest, it was really, really good to have that kind of income coming in. And I was able to pretty well do whatever I wanted. So what that meant is I decided to get a luxury car. I paid cash for it. I'd take a lot of vacations, and not just, a little weekend here or there, or going to your local Holiday Inn. I would take luxury vacations, to luxury resorts, international. I would go for not just a couple days. Sometimes I would go for 2 weeks, and not just once or twice a year. I remember a couple of years I went like 6 times during the year. So I was treating myself very, very well, but I was earning it, so it was not a problem. And I was also working probably about 6 days a week. So I was doing a lot of what they call reward shopping, which I can say that now in retrospect. I didn't realize that as it was going on. But a lot of kind of like, I deserve this. If anyone's ever had done that, please give me some likes or hearts. But like I said, I didn't know anything about mindset or any of that other stuff then, so I wouldn't have known. I would have just thought I was doing the right thing. And a lot of times I would, work on a Saturday. On the way home, I'd stop off at one of my favorite shops, and I had personal shoppers there, and they'd pull out a rack of clothes like, hey, you got to try all these things on. They'll look beautiful on you. And then when it would come down to choosing, like, do I want this style or this style or this color or that color? Honestly, I was so exhausted from working all week that I would just be like, I'll just take everything. And it didn't really matter because, again, I was making so much money that it would be nothing to just charge a couple $1,000s on an unexpected shopping trip because every month I just paid my credit cards off in full, no big deal. Right. And again, this lasted for, like I said, this was going on for about 16 years. So you can understand, I thought, as well as my counterparts, we thought this thing was never going to end. We thought we were riding this really great gravy train and, we're working hard, but making the money and life was good. And meanwhile, the economy started shifting and we noticed it, but we didn't pay a huge amount of attention to it until we started seeing people we know started getting laid off. And, it seemed like each week another company was doing massive layoffs until finally my company was doing them. And I was one of the people who got laid off, and I got, offers from other companies to do something similar. But I just kind of said, you know what, I'm just ready for a change. And so therefore I became the accidental entrepreneur, without doing it the way you're kind of supposed to, and grew this business that I'm very, very proud of. So one of the first things I want to talk to you about is spending, because that is super, super key, especially as we're going, we're in this pandemic right now, and then also going forward, because what I find is that most people, especially Americans, are not so great. I mean, with spending money, hence we have a huge amount of credit card debt, and people shop very, very impulsively and all that. And so what happened to me is when my business, when I started my business, honestly, I'm just going to be straight with you. My credit cards were a mess because I didn't have that flow anymore. All of a sudden, the flow had just like stopped, right? So making all those huge checks had just stopped, and I just had a mess to deal with. And so I decided I was going to do my business as a cash business, and which is something new for me. But I also had to learn about needs versus wants, and that's one thing I want to talk to you about today. You've probably heard the phrase before, but I want to really reiterate it because it's so critical. I see on Facebook people saying like, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that," and all these kinds of things, which are great if you've got the money constantly flowing in. But knowing what is going on right now, I really want to reiterate to look to really check out needs versus wants, especially make sure your foundation is strong in your business. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're saying, oh, I'm going to redo my branding, or I'm going to do a new logo, or I'm going to do a new website because I got the time. Well, all those things are great. So everybody who does those things, who is a web designer or branding expert or whatever, I'm not saying those things are bad. So I'm just telling you that. But what I want people to think about is do it at the time that it's in the best place for you, and not because it's a bright, shiny object thing. So very often I find that when people want to do things like branding, or they want to do something like that, or change their logo, that it's a lot of times it's avoidance. I'm just going to be really honest with you. It's kind of bright, shiny object. And what they really need to do, because they think that's going to bring them in clients, and what they really need to do is learn how to expand and increase and strengthen their sales skills. And I know that because I teach my clients how to sell. And I know that one of the things that they really would rather not do is sell, because honestly, when you think about it, you'd rather just have that line of clients just like ringing your doorbell or emailing you, or knocking on the door, whatever, saying I want to work with you. That sales conversations for most people are not something you're comfortable with. So I get that. Again, that's why I teach it, but understand most people are avoiding it, and then they do the bright, shiny object, like I'm just going to change my colors of my logo, or change the font or something. And those are great things to do. They're fun things to do, but those are not going to really bring you in the income that you're going to need. Okay. So I just want to be really straight about that. Do things at time appropriate times. And regarding the website, something kind of really interesting happened. A couple days ago, I started posting on social media about an upcoming event I'm going to do this September. Literally, I just started posting it maybe an hour before, and I got this email from this woman saying, hey, I'd love to be a speaker at your event, and I speak all over. And what else did she say? She said, I've done TED Talks, and she listed all the different companies. And first of all, I'm not having any speakers at my event, but I was kind of curious, who is this woman? So she had the link to her website, and I clicked on the site, and then there's the About Me page. So I want to know, like, well, who is she? I click on the About Me, and it says page can't be found. So when you think about just going through all this effort, either she is or a team member or somebody to go find events that might need speakers, and yet her website's not working. So what I'd really suggest you do, instead of changing the colors or something, or doing fancy dancy stuff, is get your foundations all set. Make sure the links work on your website. Make sure people can contact you, right? So they can find out who you are, because those things will actually cost you money. All right, because if somebody did want to go hire her and her about page doesn't work, they're not going to hire her. So I really want to recommend do things like that. Again, your needs versus your wants. Focus on that for right now. And again, unless you're in the place where the money's just totally flowing and it's no big deal, then awesome. Then but still, honestly, I would still tell you to get things in the right place, because that just takes up your energy and has you go off in directions that might not be as important. One thing I do want to share is there is an exception to that rule. And so one example of that is my business was probably just about 6 months old. I got invited to a very cool event on the West Coast. So here I am in Boston. This is outside of Los Angeles, 3,000 miles away. And the event looked awesome, seriously awesome. However, it would cost $1,000 to buy the plane ticket, plus the hotel, to stay there, because it was at a very nice hotel, not some cheap little rinky-dinky hotel. Plus the ticket to the event was about $1,000, plus boarding my girl and food, right? So I figured that's close to a $3,000, 4-day trip. And my business is 6 months old, and I'm not making anywhere near that kind of money. And I was like, Kate, that's foolish. On paper, it makes no sense. Just don't do it. And I kind of pushed that aside, but I couldn't let go I just kept popping up. I kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. So finally, I had a conversation with my coach about it. And I said, I want to tell you about this. I said, it doesn't make any sense for me to go, but I can't stop thinking about it. And he said, well, and he asked me some really good questions. And one of them was like, so what are you going to get from this? And I told him what I thought the results were I would get from attending. And so he kind of listened really thoughtfully. And then after our conversation, he said, he goes, I really think you should go. And so I did end up going. I made the decision too that if I was going to go, I wanted to get back several times my investment, because my business background, ROI, return on investment, that if I'm going to put myself out there and invest this way at this high level, I want to make sure I'm getting it back. And so I did go to the event. I played fully way out. I played great. 100% I put in. And honestly, I got back something like, I was trying to think about this the other day. I think I earned back 4 times what I invested in 6 weeks. So huge amount, and it kept growing. It didn't just stop, but it was just like immediately the things just started shifting and money coming to me. So that's the first thing I want to talk to you about, changing your relationship with money. So if you think of this as money is kind of like, let's say a chair and 4 legs, and there's, so the first leg is the spending, okay? The second, and just so you know, there are obviously more things, than what I'm going to talk about today, but I want to talk about the key things. The second leg I want to talk to you about is your spending. Your saving rather. And saving is really, really huge. Something my aunt taught me, and I was way too young to appreciate it. I was like in my early 20s, and she was a big marketing consultant, very well known, did all sorts of cool stuff. And she said, when you've got money in the bank, you'll have power. She said, money in the bank gives you personal power. That was in my 20s. I didn't think anything about personal power or whatever, and I kind of didn't think much about it. But over the years, what she taught me has become so important to me, because when you have money in the bank, it gives you freedom and freedom of choice. And that's the power, right? So I want to share a couple of things that you can do to start really increasing your abundance, your savings. And I'm going to share, I could probably share like a dozen different ideas at least, but I'm just going to share a couple, for when it's somebody who's a beginner, when it's someone who's a little bit more advanced. And these are all ones that either I've done, I've shared them with my clients, and they've really helped me throughout this whole crazy pandemic right now. So the first one is for somebody who, let's say, has never really saved before or hasn't been successful at saving, or maybe right now your money is so tight you just don't have huge chunks to put into savings. So the best thing to do is start taking action. And one of the easiest ways to do it is, if you start today, you put $1 into a savings account. Next week, same day, so today's Tuesday, so next week on Tuesday, you put $2 in. A week from then, you put $3 in, and so on and so on and so on. You just keep doing it and keep adding another $1 each week. You got to have the consistency. The amount is so small that it's not going to be painful for you to do that. But before you know it, you'll have a nice chunk of money in your account. Now, sometimes people will be kind of resistant to the idea, and they'll go like, hey, that's so little, it's not going to do anything. But what I want to share with you is that when I've had clients do this, they've actually had a very different experience. So one of my clients, I had her do something similar, and actually she was somebody who when she started working, was actually on unemployment. I helped get her to $8,000 a month in earnings within a very short time, got her to start saving some money. And she was very resistant too. She's like, Kate, it's so little. She goes, it's not going to do anything. Like, why should I bother? But I said, just do it. Just try. Just take the steps, see what happens. And then, we didn't discuss it again. And a few months later, she goes, I can't wait to tell you this. And I said, what? She goes, I've got several $1,000s in that account now. And I was sitting there, someone who was always like an honors math. I'm doing the math going like, she couldn't how did that even physically happen? That's like better than bunnies, like bunnies multiplying. And so I asked her, I said, like, well, what happened? And she goes, well, at first I didn't want to do it. She goes, but after the first month and I kept seeing the money start growing, she goes, I started really getting into it. And every time I had some extra money, $5 here, a dollar there, $10, $20, unexpected checks, she goes, I just kept putting in that in the account. And before I knew it, she goes, now I've got a couple of $1,000s. So understand that that's typically what I see people experience, is that once they kind of get into the groove, it just keeps growing and growing faster and faster. Now, another way to share with you is, let's say you are somebody who has already been doing some savings of money, that if you aren't already, you want to start doing some buckets. So what this means is, besides the money you're putting aside, you also want to have maybe a vacation bucket, because I always attract people who like to travel, and you put money aside there. Maybe you've got education, or maybe you've got for your kids' education, clothing, whatever, but different buckets. Now, if you are brand new at savings, please don't do buckets, because it's just going to get way too confusing for you. I want to set you up to succeed. You can always switch over to this, but at least do like 6 months where you're just regularly saving a small incremental amount. Okay, but for those of you more advanced, definitely do buckets. You can either do a set amount each month, each week, but you want to do it no less frequently than every month, or you can do a percentage, whatever works for you. The one account that everybody needs to have set aside, and whether this is for the newbie or whether somebody more experienced, is what I call a freedom account. Now, if you listen to people who are the money experts, they call this like an emergency account. I don't like the word emergency. It's very like anti-law of attraction to me. It's like it means like I'm waiting for an emergency to come. I really prefer to call it a freedom account, because when you call it a freedom account, it's giving you that place of power, that place of choice to decide what you want to do. So let's say, like right now it's summer, it's super hot in Boston. And let's say you own a home, and let's say your air conditioning goes in the fritz. So you call out the repair person, and they give you a quote to fix it. Well, you now have the freedom to take that money and say, okay, am I going to fix it? Get the AC fixed. Or maybe you say, you know what, I don't feel like fixing it right now. I'm going to go to Amazon, and I'm going to just order a bunch of fans and put them inside my house. Or maybe you say, you know what, summer's really short. I'm just going to sit here and drink ice water for the next month and then be done with it. But you have the freedom of choice, and that's where the power is, right? That you get to decide. You're not feeling scared or powerless or like a victim, that you've got the choice to decide how do you want to handle it. And that's why I like calling it a freedom account. And that's what I really believe everybody needs to start with. Or however, if you're in Boston like we are now, where yesterday it was like 105 degrees, you might have the AC and then also I've got the fans going too. I mean, that's just how hot it is right now. But again, it allows you to have that money to choose, to decide how you want to spend it. So that's the second leg. So we've got your spending, we've got your savings. The third leg for this, I'm just going to take a sip of water. I'm a big water and lemon drinker. Anyone else? The third is your income or your earnings. And I'm not really going to dive into that, because it takes a while to really kind of talk about and to go into detail. I am going to be discussing that at my upcoming event in September. You can learn more about it at katebeaters.com/intensive. That's katebeaters.com/intensive. And I'm really going to be diving into helping people set goals and, for the rest of the year, and to reach them, get them on track, putting together strategies that are going to work based on where you are, as well as mindset techniques. We're going to do tapping, lots of tapping, which I love. We're going to pull in laws of attraction. We're going to do neuroscience, all sorts of really cool stuff for a small group of people. And again, that's katebeaters.com/intensive. So that is the third leg, your earnings. The fourth leg I want to talk about is mindset. And I think of mindset, being an expert in mindset, I think of mindset as like the glue, right? That you can take all these actions, but if you don't have the glue, everything just kind of falls apart. It's kind of like the lottery ticket winners, right? You know, that you hear about them, they win like millions of dollars, and then a couple of years, bam, it's gone. You know, they've lost it all, or spent it all, or they've declared bankruptcy, whatever, you know, but it's not there. And so you really want to have the right mindset, so you become that abundance magnet, that money magnet. And you know, it's so much based on your money story. So that's what you learned, what you experienced as a child growing up, how you saw your parents handle money, how they spent money, how they talked about money, how they saved money, what they talked to you about money, you know, all those things you experienced, what you believe you deserve, what you're worthy of, also the community you're hanging out with. Because if, let's say, you know, you're the overachiever and your friends aren't, then that pulls you back. So all these different things affect your relationship with money. Okay, so it's really important to change it and really get it aligned with who you how you want to show up, where you want to be, okay? Because there's no limit to it. There's really no limit to it. And then once you are aligned, it just becomes, it's like if I pull my magnet, you're just like a money magnet, right? Or abundant magnet, it just comes to you. Um, and so what I see people often do is they set an intention, like they'll write an affirmation or something like, okay, I want to double my earnings this year, or I want to double my income this year, you know, something like that. That's the affirmation. And then when they notice it's not happening in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, they kind of give up. They say, see, not meant to happen. It was foolish of me to even think this would even come true. Um, you know, there's too much competition. I've never been able to do it before. What makes me think I could do it now? All these terrible things they say to themselves. And so what they're doing is they're stopping it from actually happening. So let me kind of explain this to you in a really kind of simple little example, is that when you start to think about something, like let's say doubling your income, you're already allowing that process to start happening and start coming into your life, okay? But once you say, see, not happening, it's not here fast enough, you're basically slamming the door. Another example is, let's say you go and you order something on Amazon, okay? You know, you hit thing to order it and it's going to be delivered, and all of a sudden you decide it's not here, it's supposed to have been here, why isn't it here? And then you do cancel. Well, then it stopped. So every time you think those negative thoughts, you're basically like saying cancel. You're slamming the door from that abundance to come in. So I want to give you a really easy mindset strategy to do. And understand, I could talk about this for days, weeks, years. I mean, I teach my clients so many different things. I wanted to give you one that you could start with and run. It's not going to cost you any money to do. All you need to do is spend a few minutes on it. And you know, if you stick with it regularly, you'll notice a huge, significant difference. And that is to start, sorry, I'm just so thirsty with all the heat. That is to start journaling about your new money story. It doesn't have to be long, it could just be a couple of sentences about how you envision your relationship with money. It could be something like, you know, I'm just feeling so abundant. Everywhere I look, I'm just noticing riches, and I've never felt wealthier in my whole entire life. And there's just abundance everywhere I turn, and I love how this feels. And this is so good, and this is how I am now living my life. Be something as simple as that. And did you notice when I started saying it, do you see how the big smile came on my face? Because my energy, my vibration was rising. And so when you can stay in this place, there's no choice but all these things to come to you. If any of you have read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, like that quote, and I'm not going to say it exactly right, but you know, when the riches started to come, they came so fast and furiously, I wonder where they've been my whole entire life. Well, that's exactly what's happening to you. So start doing that. Start writing your new money story. And if you're an overachiever, write it twice a day. Write it in the morning, write it in the evening. Only takes a few minutes. But you're going to have to do it for a bit, right? Because depending on how long things take, depend on how many stories you have, you know, that you've been telling yourself in the negative, how many negative things you think about yourself. But it starts the process going. It starts the process going. And I'm always here to help you. You know, if you want coaching, you can always email my team, info@katebeaters.com. That's info@katebeaters.com. And we can do some private work and really help you, you know, kind of shift those old stories out. The last thing I want to share with you, and this is so huge to share with you all, is that even though we're going through a pandemic, and yes, this is not a good time, it's not a fun, you know, on the news, it's not a fun time, I'm just being really straight. I've never felt more abundant in my life right now. I'm just telling you honestly. And I've got my clients saying that to me too, that everywhere we look, we're just seeing so much abundance. It just feels so good. And it's because I'm putting all these practices, I've been doing them for so long, and I just keep doing them, and I do more of them. And everywhere I turn, there's abundance. And I want the same for you. I want you to live this abundant life. So I'd love to know what you thought of this training. I'd love for you to share this with your friends, your community, because it's a really, really powerful training that is so important to start paying attention to now. Start today. We've done the 4 legs. We did your spending, your savings, your earning, and your mindset. Huge things, huge things. So please share this. And if I can help you further, it's info@katebeaters.com. And until we meet again, be brilliant.